Yeah, so I grew up in a really small town north of here. It's like an hour north of here, Beamer. My parents have like a little lake. It's a sand pit, and I was really active. Wakeboard, water ski. I mean, I've done about everything you can think of. My mom invites like her sisters. She has one brother, so all my cousins, which is a lot, and we have like a Fourth of July party. So we have a ski boat, fishing boat, four wheelers, and just really laid back. So we were getting ready to teach people how to ski, stuff like that. And I was in water this deep. I was swimming with my goddaughter, who's 3, my wife, and then I had like 11-year-old nephew there. And it was kind of cold, and I'd been swimming, so I said, come on, guys, let's make a splash. So I just kind of dove off to the side, and somehow I hit my head, and I fractured my C6. So I had no bump on my head, no sand in my hair, just it was just enough to damage my spinal cord. So your spinal cord actually, it kind of looks like this. I just had 2 cracks in the front, but it was unstable enough that it damaged my spinal cord. I was face down in the water, and they thought I was playing a practical joke. So my nephew's like, "Oh, don't go in there. He'll dunk you or slash you or whatever." And I can remember everything, so could just barely move my wrist, and I passed out a couple times, came to, and then my wife and some of my cousins were lifeguards, so they knew exactly what happened, what to do. So they held me in the water. They called 911. Ambulance had to take me about a mile and a half to the highway. Helicopter landed there. It's like 35 minutes. I was at the hospital. Was at the hospital for 4 days. So on 4th of July, I fractured my neck. At 5 o'clock on July 8th, I was at Madonna, and I could move one arm. So I thought I was drowning. I wasn't drowning. I was so paralyzed that I was not breathing. So that's why. And I just regained breathing on my own. I didn't have to have a trach. Things went really well for what happened. The first couple days of Madonna, they were like, "Let's go down, we'll show you the therapy gym." So they put you in a power chair, and you just have blood pressure and different issues with it. And I could only stay conscious for about like maybe 2 or 3 minutes in a power chair. So that's where I started. And I was at Madonna for 5 months and 5 days. And I can't say that I really walked out of there, but I could do some walking by the time I left. I've used every piece of equipment. If you go in the gym, there's not one thing I hadn't used. So I don't know if you're familiar with everything. I have like the loco mat. So to use the loco mat, you have to be able to stand up. So standing up messes with your blood pressure, and you just literally pass out. You say, "Oh, I'm getting lightheaded," and you wake up sitting down usually. So in order to use the local mat, you have to be able to stay conscious standing up for like at least 5 minutes. So that was like a lofty goal. So I used the local mat for a while, and it was really good. My motor skill was really low when I started using that. So from there I went to the body weight support treadmill, where they have like therapists basically help move your feet for you, and I think a lot of that helps develop like a gait pattern at that point. And at that point I could walk. Like the first time I walked, it took 5 therapists, a walker. I don't even remember how people were help holding me up, and I made it about 15 feet. And that 15 feet took like 40 minutes. So I work outside of Madonna as well with a therapist, and like 800 meters is about my best walking. And I use lost strand crutches. I don't know if you're familiar with those. They have like the cuff, and it's been great. I can use steps. So when we go to people's houses, everybody has steps to get into their house. And it can be really limiting, like we have to carry a ramp or extra equipment. To have that freedom is really good. And if we go somewhere, hey, everybody's downstairs playing pool, we went to a Christmas party. I mean, I can do, extensive amount of steps and stuff. So I went from the body weight support, kind of the next step up from that is the ICARE. So for me, the ICARE, I mean, it's a really demanding workout compared to, a lot of those other things. So that's kind of my progression. The first time I used local mat, the ICARE, I was impatient, and I mean, it wasn't very long, and I had the same pass out problem. So the first experience, I mean, I don't think I made it very far, went very far, and I took a break from it for a while. So then as I got better at walking and more, I mean, like physically fit isn't necessarily the word either, it's the capacity or ability to be able to progress into things that are more difficult. I got really good at the local mat. So they have the suspension, which I'm going to use today because I haven't used the local mat or the ICARE for quite a while.
We're going to take the word local mat out of your language.
I don't know. Usually I don't have that in my vocabulary either, but the last time I used it for a length of time, which, I mean, I've had months of time on there because I've been on and off to therapy for 6 years. My injury was in 2010, so it will be 7 years on the 4th of July. And, but I could use it with no motor assistance. Like at first they took a lot of weight off. I mean, I don't remember exactly, but it was more than 50%. And then they kind of lower the weight they're supporting. And then I got to the point where it just kind of was like 10 pounds, enough to help stabilize you a little bit. And Thad and I did like a really intense deal a while back, and I could actually drive it with no assistance at one point. And the way that kind of shows how it's helping is when it comes to walking, my ability to stand longer, walk further, and do more activity, outside of the therapy realm just really increases. So at the point of that, I could actually walk without crutches and stuff also, which was Lincoln's Madonna, and I think it's 110 feet or something like that. And I could turn around and come back. So it seems like every once in a while I have an injury or something that kind of hangs up my progression, and then I kind of go back and have to move forward. So I've been in and out of here using a lot of their equipment a lot, and I really feel lucky and fortunate, and for having a bad injury. I mean, I just feel really lucky, blessed, that type of deal. So that's pretty much my story, I think.
Thank you, Colby. What questions do you have for Colby?
First off, round of applause for you.
Thank you.
I think what you really hear with Colby is, particularly for individuals who've experienced more complex injuries, it's really that complement of equipment that is going to help them to achieve their best outcomes. If you only have one piece, then you're either going to under-challenge or over-challenge the person, but you're not going to be able to meet them where they are. And what we really want to be able to do is help meet the needs in our facility, because we see the top 2% of complexity in the nation. So that's Madonna's specialty, is seeing complex patients. We see the most complex patients. So within our complement of equipment is that technology that is able to deal with the needs of the individuals who have the most complex challenges, and then continue to address their needs as they go through that recovery process, knowing that sometimes you have, as Colby described, a few steps forward, and then unfortunately a step back, and so really being able to meet them. And it sounds as though Colby described using the ICARE in the assisted modes, but then also the excitement of being able to use it as a traditional elliptical. And that's one of the nice features is that you described it as being able to do the overriding the motor, so being able to use it in that override mode, so the different levels of assistance or resistance that are built into it. So, Colby, I think we have the harness here, and we were hoping to maybe get you up,
Sure.
knowing that you're just coming off of a bump in the road.
Right, yeah, I was recently injured and spent some time in the hospital, and it's been 5 weeks. I've been kind of on, they kind of didn't want me to be super active, so.
Is this gonna push you to, so we really wanna respect where you are.
No, well, I'm game to try whatever. I mean, you know, this whole thing, like the first time I used it, it was under a minute, you know, like got on it. It was doing a lot of the work and everything, and after a minute, it was like, oh my gosh, you know, help me down, we need to stop. And then so I used it in half-hour increments, like when I was really good at it. And for those increments, I would kind of take a break in the middle just to break it up, because, I mean, they can make it really tough on you too. So
one of the big challenges for individuals who've had whether it's a brain injury, a stroke, or a spinal cord injury, is regaining their physical capacity. So not only is it regaining the walking ability, but the physical activity, kind of building up that stamina again at a level that's going to help reduce the chances of developing diabetes, heart disease, having another stroke. And so one of the things we've heard very consistently from people is the ICARE is more so than other types of equipment, it also provides the opportunity for a great physical challenge. So the person can be working simultaneously on addressing their walking ability, but also the physical aspects of the cardiovascular challenge.
right, like cardiovascular in a chair, I mean, it's really tough. In the sitting position, like I'm already have limited ability to breathe. Like my breathing capacity is maybe like 60% of what it used to be. It might even be lower than that. So you have like the arm bike, I'm sure you've seen the arm bike, you know, and it is a workout, but your breathing isn't, you know, it's almost worse because you're exerting your upper body and trying to maintain your posture, and, you know, lifting weights or pushing your chair in a, you know, repetitive chair pushing is actually, there's lots of complications that come with that, at least for me. In regards to just shoulder stuff, and you need to kind of take care of that and maintain that, so you don't want to just like find the biggest hill and try to pound away at the hill or something, because that can set you back, and you know, that's pushing this thing my primary means of getting around, so you don't want to really endanger that part either. So it's always a trick to have a balance of,
You look like you want to get it done.
yeah.
You're the person that doesn't sit around and do
Right.
things, you try and get it done.
I'm curious, at what point during your treatment process did you begin walking? So you were talking how you use the crutches. So when you're using the assist and you're walking, at what point were you post ICARE? Was it during the ICARE process? Was it where along the line?
Right, so before I left inpatient, I could walk with a walker, but it was really limited, like needing help. I mean, literally they have little, you know, sit on a chair with wheels, and they kind of help place your feet. So that was, you know, like 5 months. By the time I could like walk consistently with a walker, it was a little over a year. I'd say a year and 2 months. So by the time I got really good at ICARE, so by the time I got a year out, the ICARE kind of came into play, like, let's try it, it's challenging, and it was almost, you know, at that point too challenging. So after like 2.5 years, and it was pretty consistent, 2 to 3 days a week therapy, I got to where I could get really good at the ICARE. So by the time, and that helped close the gap after 3 months, or 3 years, is where I could hit the track. Like, we would go with a track and the loft strand crutches, and then within 6 months of that time frame is where I could walk without crutches, which, I mean, it's pretty shaky walking without that, but with my crutches I was really good, and even now I'm, you know, really comfortable with my crutches standing up and doing stuff with that. So that's been the last, 3 years has been really comfortable with that. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah,
Are-
all right.
and also, has your setbacks been complications or just you being busy and getting, trying to?
Yeah, so one of my complications that has been almost worse than my spinal cord injury is heterotopic ossification. So that is like a random bone growth, and it comes from people that can be like inactive. So, I guess cancer patients, spinal cord injury, brain injury. So mine was in my hip, and I've had 5 surgeries across here. So now I have scar tissue because one of those surgeries was by my femoral artery, which is really enriched blood supply area. So that infection really caused a lot of damage. And so in and out of that, I think my first surgery was like 1.5 years out, and it's pretty bloody and invasive because they have to shave the bone out of your muscle. So that was, a very difficult setback each time. So, and that's just part of my spinal cord injury that developed like 6 weeks after I was in the hospital originally. So July 4th, middle of August. It was actually, when it started, it was hot. You could touch it and feel the inflammation, like it was a sprained ankle, and you feel your ankle and it's just painful and hot. So that is how, and so yeah, treatment for that has been rough. So the setback in regards to that. So if I didn't have that, it would be hard to tell where I'd be now, because my whole left leg and hip is like a lot weaker. If I would say it's, when I'm walking or standing, 75% or 70% of my weight is bared on my right side. So I kind of have one that's 75%, the other one's doing, like 25, so that makes things more difficult for sure.
Colby, would you be willing to walk into ICARE and talk at the same time?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
fine. Speed
okay?
things up a little.
Just capitalize on your time, because I know that you
Sure.
have other missions in your day today, so we want to be respectful of that.
Thank you.
Someone wanna grab the mic?
Thank you
Yeah,
very
sure.
much.
So one of the things that Colby described with the
Thank you.
the
Thank
HO
you.
or the heterotrophic ossificans is that
Yeah.
physical inactivity it can be a challenge, particularly with the legs. And so the fact that you get up on a person could be getting up on the ICARE and having that repetitive motion of the legs.
Yep.
We have one person that we know who's an ICARE user in their home who's had a spinal cord injury, so they use it on a daily basis to try and stay ahead of things.
No, it feels pretty good.
So with that override piece with the motor, effectively, all Colby needs to do is go 1 revolution per minute faster, and the motor disengages. Right. The 5 piece just gives them the feedback. It's kind of the visual feedback.
Have you developed protocols for that?
We do use it with different populations, so it's built in as a way of adding challenge.
Yeah,
Yes.
There's lights too, right?
Right.
Indicators on here, and it is very difficult, like when you get into the overriding part, so you can
Yeah.
determine what you're doing.
Gotcha. And then as you slowly come out of that, it'll
Re-engages.
and then start
Right.
going through it again.
And
How does
we,
that feel around your ankle?
It's good.
Good.
Yeah.
So-
So you can see when Colby's
Yeah.
over, right?
Yep, I was watching it changing.
It'll
Yeah,
change to
change.
green, right? If he goes 3 over, because that's what I said in there.
What is that talking about?
It's,
It-
I kinda have
Foot pedal.
spasticity a little.
Okay.
When his spasticity kicks in, it just pulls up on that rail.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
and so you can actually use it as a reinforcement mechanism. You can say, see if you can control that sound.
Yeah, don't make that sound.
Right.
Don't make that sound. So when it goes green, you're overriding it?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so for some of our patients, saying, you can imagine for a younger person or somebody who's had a stroke and maybe their brain isn't functioning as well, to say go 5 faster isn't going to make sense.
Exactly.
But if you can say, take it up into the green. Okay, keep it in the green,
Much
keep it in the
easier,
green.
yeah.
Right. And so you can really,
I'm watching your face.
Yeah.
and so all of this is meant, everything that we've put into this is based on a lot of feedback from patients, from clinicians about how to make this as user-friendly as possible, as easy as possible to use.
Now, as far as with your condition, I mean, as far as like heart rate goes, do you have to stay with under a certain,
Yeah, that's what-
certain
that's
heart
what I was
rate,
gonna
or do you have a target heart rate that you
No,
try to
but
reach?
it's
or-
really hard for my heart rate to change because of my injury.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So it's like, I mean, it's different from day to day too. So
Yep.
it's hard to monitor how
How
it works.
does your hip feel with all that,
It's-
because of the surgery and
It's
stuff?
really good. So like this increases my range of motion.
Yeah, so it kind of stretches that.
Yeah, so it stretches. So usually when I do this, when I use it a lot, it will get smoother
Yeah.
and easier for me to do.
Okay.
And like that little spasticity
Yep.
will go away.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, and then if I get too tired, it'll come back.
So
So there's like a sweet spot.
you've been going for about
Yeah,
2.5
2 minutes.
So you said at one point you were
You
doing
could
this
only
at
do it for-
or you were doing it up to 30 minutes at a shot, and then
I would
take
pull
a
the break in the middle, so I'd go like 15
Okay, gotcha.
and then take a break because
So if I could ask you, how much are you feeling your upper body and your arms? Are you really kicking in with your arms and
No.
shoulder, or is it leg?
so I just
That
use my
response
arms
there.
for
Yeah,
stability.
that's what I was
Like
looking
I
at.
just about have my thumbs on
Yeah,
there,
that's,
Yep.
yeah.
and yeah, I mean it works really good, you know, because it meets you in the right spot
Yeah.
for stability wise.
And so, because the arms and the foot pedals are interlaced, it's actually a nice thing, because if you want to challenge arms, you can say,
That's
we
what
want
I
you to
mean.
use your arms to drive it. If you want to challenge legs, you can use the legs.
Different amount of injury too.
Right, and so if you have a person who has a stroke and they've had half of their body impacted,
Right.
Yep.
well, it may be that you're trying to get them to use the other half at times to push a little bit harder. Or, you know, as Colby brought up, for people with spinal cord injury, oftentimes the thing we want to protect is the shoulder joints, because the shoulder joints weren't made to be the legs.
Correct.
But yet, after the spinal cord injury, oftentimes you're using them as your way of getting around the environment, and the shoulders wear out, they become painful. And then you've really impacted, again, quality of life for that individual. So in Colby's situation, not having to push a whole lot on this, but the gentle motion
Yeah.
could be potentially advantageous.
One of the things I was gonna go back to on the overriding, you can also use that to work a little bit on control. So not only do they just override it and go,
Yep.
you set it for 3 and they override it to 15 and down to 2 and then back up to 10. You can actually try it for some
You know what I meant?
neurologic conditions. You might be interested in having them control that right at the 3 over, so that kind of gives them some feedback on.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we'll have that this afternoon. We'll be with a gentleman, where in that situation, that control aspect becomes more important.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of push harder, but push harder with control.
Yeah.
And so,
So I noticed, now this is pneumatic,
Yeah,
from my
I know,
understanding,
like
as far as
46,
the unweighted
50.
portion of this. And then this is all motorized as far as putting it into gear and getting it going. What's the range as far as like he said, he set it at 3, how far can it go up, or how?
so from a speed perspective, you can
Yeah.
go anywhere up to about 65 revolutions per minute with motor assistance.
Okay.
You could go faster than that.
Yep.
You know, a person could go 70. In reality, 65 is, we describe 20 to 25, kind of our colloquial ways of thinking about it. 20 or
Yep.
25 is like you're getting married. You're walking down the aisle and you realize you've made a mistake. And so you start slowing down. You know, that's kind of what 25
Yeah.
at some level feels like. But for individuals who've experienced, you know, a serious injury or an illness, that 25 can feel like a really pretty fast clip.
Yeah.
40 revolutions per minute for most of our people is kind of a, by the time they're leaving the inpatient setting, transitioning to outpatient, that's a fairly comfortable speed.
Gotcha.
You know, that would be kind of a quick pace, comfortable speed. 60 to 65 feels like you're doing a slow jog. So
Okay.
that's kind of really starting to,
Yeah,
to
really
push.
starting to get it
Right.
going. Okay.
So,
So how do you feel now? I mean,
Disappointed. I was hoping for at least 5 minutes.
okay, but I noticed some
Yeah, so everything's like more active.
active now. So
Yeah.
can you feel that?
Yeah, I have, so my feeling is like probably 70% or 60%, somewhere in that range.
How does it feel? I mean, how does that different, if
So,
you can tell me from.
yeah, so I mean, it's probably not easy for me to really determine, but you know, because of the blood flow, like my legs feel like warmer
Yeah.
and
Yep.
you know, almost like a more of a tingling and stuff too. You know, just, but I can tell like my calves have been stretched out, like everything is really, you know,
Just from that
more
little bit of time
stretched.
even.
Just a little bit of time, yeah.
and Colby, when you say you're disappointed, is the disappointment in the device or the disappointment in the fact that you're just kind of coming back off of an injury and you're trying to?
Yeah, disappointed because I was hoping I'd go 5 minutes easy and.
One of the things that we could have done to increase this time is increase the body weight support. We
Yeah,
only
that's
got
what I was-
about 15 pounds of support
Right.
there, so.
Yeah, that's what I was watching.
But that's that workout thing too, like if you take too much of it away, then you just feel like you're gliding a little, so
Oh,
it's
gotcha.
like that
The
challenge.
gauge is gone almost.
Yeah, well, yeah, the challenge, is being able to, use your weight and.
Override the system.
Yeah, because at
doing
one
it by
point I was
yourself.
like, geez, maybe we should put the weight down a little, and then I probably would only made it 2 minutes.
Okay.
So,
One of the things that Colby also described was that his heart rate wasn't going to change a lot.
Yeah.
And so that can happen because of the injury. So with spinal cord injury, it can blunt the heart rate response. Also, some of the medications that people take, if they're on
Okay.
beta blockers, sometimes after stroke, or even individuals with spinal cord injury will also be on some medications that blunt that heart rate response. And so clinicians who are thinking, well, I'm going to use this to build their cardiovascular fitness, and I'm going to give them a target heart rate, and gosh, well, it's not getting them to that level. What's wrong? It must be the device. Well, it's not the device. It's just the fact that the heart rate isn't going to
Yeah.
change. And so in that situation, what we want to do is help them to understand to use something called a Borg rating of perceived exertion scale.
Okay.
That helps the person kind of target the right heart rate zone
Mhm.
based on their perceptions. And it's a standardized scale that we can talk about later,
Sure,
but,
yeah,
and you're
I like
probably
that.
familiar with.
yeah, I think I've used that scale before.
We love that scale. But
Yeah.
it's a good way when a person's heart rate isn't changing to not just drive them till they drop
Well,
when it's
certainly, yeah.
not
It's-
appropriate to.
yeah.
And it's a standardized scale developed back in the 80s. What else should you share with us that we're not thinking to ask you?
I've seen a lot of people use this with like the broadest amount of injuries. I have a friend that has, he's paraplegic and really high functioning, and he just uses it on his own, I think at the workout place in Lincoln, Proactive. And he lives for it, and he just hops on it, hits go. He uses almost no, he uses just no motor or anything, and hops on it and has, a lot of luck. And then when he started too, it was from scratch, like, can you move your toe, those are a lot of the things
Yeah.
to celebrate when you're
Oh, yeah.
first
And he's
coming
another
up.
one of those individuals that had commented that the ICARE took them to the next level.
Yeah.
So they'd been using some of the other devices and felt like, it was helping them a little bit, but once they got on ICARE, they realized that was taking them to the next level in their recovery, so.
I think we have a video of his comments that we'll be sharing
What
later.
do you do at home, excuse me? What are you doing at home with any equipment or?
Yeah, so, I have like the workout, like a therapy mat, and on my own, I'm limited to a lot of just upper body stuff, and limited, like in the wintertime, I can't walk around the house, but I also go to a gym, and there I have like a personal trainer that helps me do stuff, so we do a lot of therapy related stuff, standing, walking, do steps, like step up on steps and stuff like that. So I go like
Arms
twice
or all
a
with
week.
your weight?
No, it's, my weight on that point, so
Does the gym have an ICARE?
the gym is not how I care
You just
now.
look so disappointed.
I know,
It's not.
It's really, really small.
Who do we need to talk to?
It's a really small gym, so
That's not an
I'm
excuse.
not sure how that works exactly. But no, if there was a gym that had ICARE, I would go straight to
So if the
gym.
YMCA's,
Young lady.
Right.
the YMCA's
Come
were,
in and use this at $25.
So,
yeah.
yeah, and I know too, just equipment in hospitals. So before Madonna was here, I went to a different hospital and to explore what they had to offer for gym stuff. And the FES bike, are you familiar?
Yep, very
That-
familiar.
that's
It's
it.
like a motor, that active passive kind of deal with electrodes that.
Yeah,
fire-
and I think they had like 3 of them there, and you have to book in, you have to write in. So it was always a month out,
Wow.
so you had to pay monthly.
To get onto a to waiting list.
To get onto it, because people used it, so religiously that you had to like try to get in that loop somehow, and it was a month out. And there, I think you have to pay per month to use the gym, and then I think you have to pay per time to use the FES bike on top of that. So
And where's that facility?
it's here in Omaha.
Okay.
So yeah,
One of the hospitals you said?
yeah, one of the hospitals here, and I mean they're, you know, before Madonna was here, the kind of only spinal, the more, I don't know how to word exactly, the more popular, I guess, spinal cord injury area. So
So just kind of as background, Madonna just opened this complex in October of this past year.
Okay.
Our main facility is down in Lincoln.
Yeah, Lincoln.
And so we got to know Colby down on the Lincoln campus, and it was because of the request to, we had so much of a draw from the Omaha community asking
Yeah.
us to put a facility up here. But it was trying to address that unmet need.
So do you live here now, or are you up, where you grew up?
So yeah, we kind of moved in between. We live south of here, so my wife's a school teacher
Okay.
in Louisville. I don't know if you know where Louisville.
I do.
So
Yep.
it's shorter here, but takes a little longer to get here. And then Lincoln is a little longer, but it's easier drive. So I'm
But you have
almost.
different, two outlets that you can
Have access to?
I actually I work right across the street
Hmm.
too. So this place has become really convenient for me.
Good for you, yeah.
Colby, thank you so much
Yeah.
for
Yes,
coming in,
thank
we
you
really
very much.
appreciate
Very,
it.
very much.
You basically started us off, so way to go. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.